The air is wrong. It's thick, damp, and smells of wet earth and something wild. The silence is too loud, broken only by the drone of insects you've never heard, and a wind that carries no echo of traffic, no whisper of civilization. One moment you were surrounded by the familiar comforts of the 21st century. Now, you're standing in a forest so dense and primeval it feels like the planet's been reset. Your phone is gone. Your keys, your wallet, your jacket, all vanished. You are utterly, terrifyingly alone, wearing clothes that are laughably inadequate. The world around you isn't just wilderness, it's a different time. You've been dropped into the Paleolithic era roughly 40,000 years ago. It's a time when modern Homo sapiens were spreading across Eurasia, sharing parts of the continent with our hardy cousins, the Neanderthals. It's also a time of giants, woolly mammoths, cave bears, and lions bigger than any you could imagine. You have no tools, no food, no map, and no matches. Everything you know, your education, your job, your life experiences, is suddenly irrelevant. The only thing that matters now is the next 24 hours. The sun is already sinking, and a clock has started counting down. This isn't a game, this isn't a hypothetical. Could you, a product of the modern world, actually survive the Stone Age? Before you can worry about food or predators, a far more urgent enemy attacks from within: thirst. Within hours, your head will ache. Your focus will blur. Your body is screaming for a resource you've always taken for granted. You see a stream nearby, its water glittering in the dappled sunlight. Your instincts scream at you to kneel and drink, but a flicker of modern knowledge holds you back. You know about bacteria, about parasites, about the invisible dangers lurking in untreated water. A single sip of the wrong water could lead to a sickness that paralyzes you, and out here there are no doctors or antibiotics. Dehydration is a relentless countdown. It will cripple your ability to think, to work, to even walk. You're faced with a terrible choice: risk dying of thirst or risk dying from the cure. So what do? You might try to find a faster-moving part of the stream, hoping it's cleaner. You might look for a place where it trickles out of rocks, a primitive filter. But these are just guesses. How did the real inhabitants of this world solve this problem? They didn't have microscopes, but they had generations of accumulated knowledge. They knew which springs were reliable. They understood that water flowing directly from the ground was often safer than stagnant pools. While boiling is a technique you know, it relies on the foundational knowledge of fire, giving you a crucial theoretical advantage. If you can conquer fire, you can make almost any water source safe. But that's a huge if. Ancient people also knew to let water sit so sediment could settle, and may have used natural filters like sand or gravel. This knowledge wasn't instinctual, it was taught. You alone have only the ghost of a science lesson to guide you. The thirst is getting worse, and the sun is getting lower. The temperature is dropping fast. What was a mild chill is now a deep, invasive cold that seeps into your bones. The forest, once a place of intimidating beauty, is transforming into a maze of menacing shadows. Every snap of a twig sounds like a predator. Your modern brain, accustomed to flipping a switch for light and turning a dial for heat, is panicking. You need fire, not just for warmth, but for light, protection, cooking, and boiling that water you so desperately need. You frantically gather dry-looking sticks and leaves. You remember a survival show. You try rubbing 2 sticks together until your hands are raw, your muscles screaming in protest. Nothing, not even a wisp of smoke. You try spinning a stick in a notch you've carved into a piece of wood. The effort leaves you breathless and sweating, despite the cold. All you have to show for it is a tiny pile of lukewarm wood dust. The feeling of failure is crushing. As darkness closes in, so does a profound sense of hopelessness. A human can burn 400 calories an hour just from shivering. Without fire, you'll be dangerously weak by morning, if you last that long. Fire wasn't a simple trick for early humans. It was a mastercraft. While early hominins were using and controlling fire over 1 million years ago, the intentional making of fire is a more recent skill. Evidence suggests that early Neanderthals may have been making fire as far back as 400,000 years ago. One of the most effective ancient methods was percussion, striking a piece of flint against iron pyrite, or fool's gold, to create a shower of hot sparks. These sparks would be caught in tinder, a carefully prepared bundle of dry fungus, moss, or shredded bark, and gently blown into flame. It sounds simple, but it requires the right materials, the right technique, and years of practice. Ötzi the Iceman, who lived much later in the Copper Age, was found with a dedicated fire-starting kit, including flint and tinder fungus. For you, with your soft hands and zero experience, creating fire from nothing is a monumental, almost impossible task. The night will be long, dark, and brutally cold. The last rays of sunlight are gone. The cold is now a physical threat, and the darkness is absolute, populated by the sounds of a world that comes alive at night. Your frantic, failed attempts at making fire have left you exhausted and exposed. You need shelter, a barrier between your soft, vulnerable body and the elements, not to mention things with claws and teeth. In a panic, you might pile up a few branches against a rock outcropping or try to burrow into a thicket of bushes. The result is a pathetic mockery of a shelter. It does little to block the wind, offers no real warmth, and provides zero protection from a determined predator. You are a highly visible, poorly insulated beacon of helplessness. Every rustle in the undergrowth makes your heart pound. You have no natural camouflage, no fur, no armor. Survival isn't just about comfort, it's about conserving energy. Staying exposed all night, shivering and terrified, is a death sentence by degrees. What would your Paleolithic counterparts have done? They were masters of landscape and material. They wouldn't build a shelter just anywhere. They'd choose a spot shielded from the wind, with a good vantage point and access to resources like water and firewood. Natural caves were prime real estate, and some show evidence of being used for generations. But where no caves existed, they built their own. Archaeologists have found evidence of simple but effective structures, temporary huts made from a framework of wooden poles, or even mammoth bones, covered with animal hides, thatch, or turf. These weren't just random piles of debris. They were intelligently designed to trap heat and keep out the rain and snow. A bed of dry leaves and grasses on the floor would provide crucial insulation from the cold ground. It was a simple technology, born of necessity and perfected over thousands of years. As you huddle in your miserable pile of sticks, you realize shelter isn't just a structure. It's an expression of knowledge you simply do not possess. You've made it through the first few hours, but the greatest dangers are still ahead. If you're finding this journey into the past fascinating, make sure to hit that subscribe button and ring the bell. You don't want to miss what happens when the real hunters of the Stone Age emerge. The night was a blur of terror and shivering. You survived, but barely. Now a new torment takes over. Hunger. Not the casual hunger of missing a meal, but a deep, gnawing emptiness that clouds your thoughts. Your body is a machine, and it's running out of fuel. The world that yesterday looked like an indifferent wilderness now looks like a hostile pantry where everything is either poisonous or trying to eat you. You see bright red berries that look tantalizingly familiar, but are they a life-saving meal or a painful death? You see mushrooms, but have no way of knowing which are safe. Foraging efficiently is an encyclopedic skill. And then there's the other side of the food equation. You aren't the only one who's hungry. This world, 40,000 years ago, was ruled by megafauna. In the shadows lurk predators like the cave lion, a beast larger than any modern lion, and the massive, bone-crushing cave hyena. You are not at the top of the food chain here. You are prey. Every moment you spend searching for food is a moment you could be stalked. So how did our ancestors survive in this lethal landscape? They didn't just survive, they dominated. They were apex predators. Neanderthals and early Homo sapiens were sophisticated, cooperative hunters. They used the terrain to their advantage, driving herds of bison or deer into natural traps like cliffs or narrow valleys. Fossil evidence shows they were organized enough to take down formidable prey, from wild boar to giant elk. Their success was built on technology and teamwork. The Neanderthal toolkit, known as the Mousterian industry, was far from primitive. It included specialized scrapers for preparing hides, sharp points for spears, and knives for butchering. For Neanderthals, hunting was likely a close-quarters affair, requiring immense courage and coordination, using heavy thrusting spears. By this time, however, some Homo sapiens were already using more advanced projectile weapons, like the atlatl or spear thrower, allowing them to hunt from a safer distance. This wasn't a solitary pursuit. Survival hinged on the group. Alone, you're a target. Together, they were a force of nature. In your desperate search for food, you slip. Your hand lands on a sharp stone, leaving a deep, bleeding gash. In your world, this is an inconvenience. You'd wash it, put on a bandage, and forget about it. Here, in the Paleolithic, this simple cut is a potential death sentence. Without antiseptics, soap, or antibiotics, the wound is an open door for infection. A simple infection could lead to a raging fever, sepsis, and a slow, agonizing death. Even a twisted ankle could be fatal, rendering you unable to hunt, flee, or keep up. The average life expectancy was low, around 30 to 35 years, not because people were frail, but because infant mortality was incredibly high and the daily risks were immense. If you survived childhood, you were tough. But your modern body, which has no prior immunity to the pathogens of this era, is dangerously vulnerable. Yet our ancestors were not helpless. The archaeological record tells a story of incredible resilience and care. There's abundant evidence of individuals surviving horrific injuries. At Shanidar Cave in modern-day Iraq, the remains of a Neanderthal known as Shanidar I show he lived for years after suffering a crushing blow to his head that would have blinded him in one eye, as well as a withered arm and severe arthritis. He could not have survived alone. This strongly implies that his group cared for him, fed him, and protected him. Evidence also suggests they had a prehistoric pharmacy. Plant residues found on Neanderthal teeth suggest they had a working knowledge of medicinal plants. Yarrow, for instance, a natural astringent, may have been used to help stop bleeding and fight infection. Your injury throbs, a stark reminder that your survival depends not just on your own strength, but on the help of others, and you are alone. By now, your body is failing. You're cold, hungry, injured, and weak. But the most grueling battle is being fought inside your head. The constant, unrelenting stress is a poison. The silence is unnerving. The darkness is terrifying, and the isolation is crushing. Your brain, evolved for a world of social connection and relative safety, is not built for this level of sustained vigilance and fear. Loneliness isn't just an emotion. In the Stone Age, it's a fatal condition. This is the final, insurmountable hurdle for a modern survivor. Our ancestors were never alone. They lived in small, tight-knit bands of perhaps 20 to 50 people. These groups were the fundamental unit of human existence, a web of shared knowledge, mutual defense, and emotional support. Skills weren't learned from a book. They were passed from parent to child, from elder to youth. The hunt, the gathering, the tool-making, the child-rearing, it was all a collective effort. The evidence for this social complexity is profound. Many believe Neanderthals deliberately buried their dead, an act that implies ritual, grief, and a connection to those they had lost. These were not brutish loners. They had brains that were, on average, even slightly larger than our own, though structured differently. They were intelligent, organized, and deeply social creatures. survival was a team sport. Without a group to share the burden of finding food, to watch your back while you sleep, to care for you when you're sick, and simply to share a story with around the fire, the psychological weight of existence in this world would become unbearable. So, back to the original question. Could you survive the Stone Age? The honest answer is almost certainly no. You'd likely succumb to dehydration, hypothermia, starvation, predation, or infection within days. But this isn't a story about your failure. It's a story about their incredible success. We look back and use words like primitive or savage, but these labels are arrogant and wrong. The people who walked this earth 40,000 years ago weren't lesser versions of us. They were masters of their world. They were expert biologists, engineers, and strategists. They possessed a physical and mental resilience that we have largely traded for comfort and convenience. Every challenge that would break you, they had a solution for. A solution born from thousands of years of trial, error, and shared wisdom. They knew the land, they understood the animals, and they relied on each other with a depth we can barely comprehend. The Neanderthals, with their powerful builds and sophisticated tools, and our direct ancestors, the endlessly adaptable Homo sapiens, were the true survivors. You don't have to know how to knap a flint blade because they perfected it. You don't have to face a cave lion with a wooden spear because they did and won. Your inability to survive in their world is the ultimate testament to their skill. They endured so that one day their descendants wouldn't have to. You are the product of their struggle, their intelligence, and their unyielding will to live. They walked through the harshest world imaginable so that you could one day sit safely in yours. The story of our ancestors is the story of humanity itself. If you want to explore more incredible stories from our deep past, subscribe for what's coming next. And let us know in the comments which challenge you think would be the toughest to overcome. Thanks for watching.